Hi, Alvin DeLeon here, and you are watching episode 37 of the 3-Minute Health Tip. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about traveler's diarrhea. Obviously, we want to rule out this concept that you ate food that was left out too long or that was bad for you and that it immediately led to your diarrhea symptoms. But for some people, they tend to think that the diarrhea is due to the water in that environment, in that area. And the problem with that is that they're exposed to the water, they're showering it, they're drinking it for the first 2-3 days, and yet they don't get their diarrhea symptoms until the 4th day of the trip. We have to now look at explaining this from a G&M perspective, or the knowledge of the 5 biological laws. We know that symptoms such as diarrhea is related to the colon or small intestine. It's controlled from the part of the brain known as the brainstem, and the conflict tied to diarrhea in general is an indigestible anger conflict, an unexpected event that happened that was hard for you to digest, hard to accept. We also understand that because of the knowledge of the 2 phases, the diarrhea symptoms often show up in the healing phase, when that anger issue is now resolved, or when you're no longer angry about that unexpected event or circumstance. And so when dealing with traveler's diarrhea and hearing about people's issues with it, it also matters when during their trip the symptoms show up. So I had this one case of a family that went to, I believe it was the Dominican Republic for a week, and it was on the 4th day of the trip that all 3 of them ended up having diarrhea. And so that tells me that the 4th day was when that conflict, an anger issue, showed up during the trip that they resolved on that 4th day. This is very different from somebody having diarrhea symptoms on the 1st day, because often that could be related to something that happened back home before they left, something perhaps to do with work or something to do with family back home that they left behind, and they resolve that anger because they don't have to worry about it for the next week. Those kind of symptoms, the diarrhea symptoms, often show up on day 1 of their trip. But when it shows up in day 4, that's usually an indication that something happened during the trip. Was it something wrong with the flight? Was there a delay? In this one particular case with this family, they ended up, after the first night of getting to the Dominican, they ended up in a wing of the hotel where there was a lot of noise, a lot of partying, a lot of young kids that would stay up and make noise and music till 2 or 3 in the morning. They were complained about this to the lobby and the hotel manager, and it wasn't until the 3rd night of the trip that they were able to get moved. So for 3 nights, they had to endure this loud 3 in the morning partying in their wing of the hotel. That must have been an anger conflict for the whole family that resolved on day 4 when they finally got moved to a new hotel room. Then the next night or the next morning, they all wake up with diarrhea symptoms. And again, not knowing the biological conflict, they all thought that it had to do with the water, which doesn't really make sense why it would have taken 3 days for them to have the symptoms. Recognizing this and making the connection that these diarrhea symptoms are actually the resolution of the fact that we got moved rooms, that we're no longer angry about the noise, we can finally relax and enjoy sleep, is what will help alleviate those symptoms quicker. So I hope that tip was helpful. I want to thank you for your attention, and I'll see you at the next episode.